I get on the train at 7:30 and I don't get home till like 6:15 earliest. And then like I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I can't even imagine the working parents out there, and like I give so much grace to them because it's incredibly hard in America to be emotionally and mentally stable when your days are structured like that.
Welcome back to the Future of Work Weekly Report, where we make sense of the chaos and occasionally call BS on the headlines. Just occasionally. All the time. Today's episode, it's Gen Z, the collapse of entry-level jobs, and how AI and economic uncertainty are squeezing out the next generation of talent before they even get a chance to get started. Because, let's be real, college grads didn't spend 4 years earning a degree just to be told their competition is a chatbot named Claude. It's almost as bad as being named Chad. Just kidding, Chad. If you watch this, very good friend of mine. All right. In 2024, internships dropped below pre-pandemic levels according to Handshake and Indeed. Entry-level job listings down 15%. Meanwhile, soon-to-be grads submitted 21% more job applications than seniors did the year before. That's not hustle. That's desperation in a market that's giving them nothing back. Just look at TikTok, LinkedIn comments, and captions. And it's not just in tech. Entry-level finance, consulting, and legal assistant jobs are drying up too. You know, roles that used to train tomorrow's leaders. Now, AI is doing half the work, and companies are starting to ask, do we really need to train someone when a bot can write the first draft?
And the macro data kind of glosses over these struggles. U.S. job openings remain historically strong, 7.7 million open roles as of January 2025, led by education and health services, business and trade. And overall unemployment is at 4.1%. Spain's unemployment rate is 11, Canada's nearly 7. So our unemployment's still at historic lows. But the reason this gets a lot of attention is that we've spent 20 or 30 years just reporting on, literally for the last 20 or 30 years almost, except for some moments around recession, but in non-recessionary times, which we're in right now, if you got a college degree, you got a job. You might have to not take the job you wanted. You might have to take a job for less, but you got a job. Now there are generally, it appears to be people who are having real trouble finding anything. And so that makes the news. But if you pull back the lens, the job market is still pretty strong. I think there's pockets. I wouldn't want to be coming out of school right now looking to go into work in consulting. I got to think consultants are thinking, do we really need new people when we can make every person here 10, 20, 40% more productive in the next 3 years using AI? So I think a lot of the traditional roles that undergrads from good institutions or even MBAs thought they could just slipstream into those are the jobs that are being hurt the most. But I wouldn't be surprised if they reconfigure, reestablish different curriculum tools, and these kids are fine. Or put another way, I still think it's a good idea to go to college. What I hope, and this is my rant about college, is that they start putting schools on the hook for some of that bad student debt, such that they aren't as promiscuous and intoxicated around issuing debt to a kid who's going to get a philosophy degree and not be able to find work. So, the kid you really feel for is the kid who borrowed $100,000 to get through school and gets out. Some of the majors at my school at NYU are just so fucking ridiculous. Gender studies and the important discussion of the politics of styrofoam. It's just, they get to make up their own majors. I'm like, who would hire you at that? Anyway, so cheap credit, I think, is really hurt, and the promiscuity of issuing debt to some of these kids, I think, is setting them up for failure. But I still think these kids are going to be much better off than non-college educated kids.
I think we should be clear on the scale of the problem. So, yes, the unemployment rate has increased by 30% from the previous number, but the actual number among college-educated people is still not that high. It's 2.6%. So, like this, college grads are fine right now. But I think what is more important is the trend. And the trend is that jobs that generally require a college degree are, compared to other jobs, in decline. So these are jobs like sales managers and administrators and analysts and programmers, the jobs that require, generally speaking, some level of skill and knowledge and experience and an understanding of how to organize and manage other people. Those are the jobs in decline. Why is that happening? I think you said it. It's technology. I mean, there's AI, there's generative AI, but even just the more primitive technologies like CRM management and data analytics platforms. The reality is that today, most cognitive tasks that we used to delegate to college-educated kids can now be delegated to a computer.
A Brookings analysis of OpenAI data found that over 50% of tasks for market research analysts and legal assistants are now capable through automation. Yet only 9% of tasks for managers are capable through automation. So we're not eliminating jobs. We're gutting the entry ramp. This creates a dangerous loop. No junior roles, no path to mid-level, and eventually, no leaders. But let's get something straight. Gen Z didn't miss workplace etiquette. They never had the chance to learn it. Many of them started college or internships remotely. Remote is not the problem here, though. It's the intentionality and the structure of the companies. They've had fewer mentorship opportunities, less access to senior leadership, and more job ghosting than any previous generation. Talk about losing trust in the first impression.
We always accuse the older generations of being stuck in the mud and not willing to change, and we always accuse the young generations who want to break everything and that they think they know more. That's old. What's new is the entitlement thing. That seems to be relatively new. There's some interesting reasons for it. One, it's a very connected generation, obviously, because of the internet, and they actually have more awareness of what's going on in the world and have access to unlimited amounts of information, obviously. But if you think when we started our careers, we were, I think, objectively speaking, idiots. Like we came into the workforce actually knowing nothing, right? And so we had no choice but to defer to those who had more experience so that we could learn to advance our careers, because we actually knew nothing and we knew nothing. This young generation that's coming in are starting work on day one with a knowledge of how technology works, how personal branding works, how social media works, and they're actually bringing a skill set that sometimes those at work don't have. And so I think what it does is it produces sometimes a warped sense of value when I show up on day one for work, which is, I don't think you realize what you're getting here. And sometimes blinds them to the fact that though those things are true, I also need you to learn all these things and you have no life experience yet. And so I think that the way we interpret that is entitlement. Young people are bringing the sense of apparent self-confidence to the workforce, learning very quickly that work doesn't work the same way as school, which doesn't work the same way as your parents taking care of everything for you, which doesn't work the same way. We may not need those skills today. We need other skills. That what you find is that it can be quite traumatic. And you'll find that a lot of the self-confidence that they show is actually false. And it's actually a very insecure generation that struggles with coping mechanisms. And we're seeing that in rises of anxiety, depression, and unfortunately suicides as well. And lacking those human skills that we talked about before, so necessary for people to feel confident in work. So I think all that is required, quite frankly, is empathy. And though it would be nice to demand that they have empathy for us, that we actually have gone through a little bit and have seen a few things in the world, that's less likely to happen. And we're supposed to be the older, more experienced ones, so I think we have to lead. We have to show empathy. That doesn't mean agree. That doesn't mean that we can't hold them accountable, but we have to learn to try and understand the life that they have grown up in, which is different than the life we grew up in, and that affects their worldview and their behavior.
But let's talk about some stats here. 37% of HR leaders in 2024 Holt survey said they'd rather give a task to AI than hire a recent grad. In a March 2024 survey, nearly 6% of college grads under 27 were unemployed, more than double the average for all degree holders. But this wouldn't be the Future of Work Weekly Report if we only talked about the problem. So let's stop diagnosing and let's talk about what leaders, educators, and yes, graduates can do today. First, employers. Rebuild the on-ramp. Create apprenticeship style entry level roles with real mentorship, not just grunt work. They don't need to get your coffee. They already made theirs on the way to work. And hire for potential, not polish. Don't expect a 22-year-old to have 3 to 5 years of experience and fluency in every AI tool. That's insane. There's a new AI tool every single day. And then also balance automation with access. Let AI assist, but use that time savings that AI gives you to train your people, not replace them. For example, how can you leverage AI training to make that person's job and outcome more productive? Now, for the new grads, treat AI literacy like a job requirement, even if the job description doesn't have it in it. Take free or low-cost AI courses. Look at LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Khan Academy. I'm a fan of Udemy. But you can typically find a free or a $10 course out there to get you started. And yes, you can put that on your resume. But then create your own proof. Build a portfolio, even speculative work. Show, don't just apply. One of the ways that I did this, which is a little bit different in today's world because AI wasn't as huge as it was today, or it is today. I looked around me as I was trying to get into operations and strategy roles. I was still kind of in an entry-level position, but I noticed, or I realized that my dad had his own business in home improvements. And I was assuming that there could be some types of improvements on operations and strategy. And so what I did was I was able to, while I was achieving my executive MBA, leverage his company as a use case and build the skills that I needed to be able to speak to it in job interviews. I put that on my resume. And one of the biggest things that was there that really caught interviewers' eyes was we were able to, in 1 year, 12 months, increase his revenue by 1,152%. It wasn't necessarily a job I got hired to or for. It was a position that I catapulted myself into because of the resources around me. If you don't have that, you can offer your services for free for just a little bit, 3 months, 6 months, just to get that experience that you can put on your resume and have a little bit of a portfolio to share. You're going to put yourself ahead of the people who choose not to do that if they're looking for an entry-level role. So you'll be ahead and you'll stand out, and you'll be able to speak to something a little bit more deeper detailed than someone who maybe had an internship where they said, yes, they work there, but really they grab coffees. So that's a little tip there. The last one for graduates, go where mentorship exists. Look for companies that promote from within, invest in development, and don't expect you to sink or swim solo. In the interview process, you can ask, what does mentorship look like here? And if they pause for a little bit, or it feels like they're making something up, you can even ask them, can I speak to someone who recently went through your mentorship program? I want to make sure that I'm able to grow here, right? And if they have any delays there, and that's an important part to you, you might want to steer clear of that. Sometimes it's not always that easy because that's the only job that gives you the opportunity. But if you have other opportunities, make sure that you remember you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. And just something for me, these books, before I found real mentors that I could speak to on a one-on-one basis, those were my mentors. Be careful on YouTube. Find the real people who have been there and done that, right? My mentor now is someone who ran a company 8 to 10 years, got it acquired, and has helped many of tech SaaS startups along the way, getting more and more exits under his belt. But until then, get the books, and make sure that you read them. But then also don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn. If you want some mentorship from me, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I won't promise everything because we are very busy, but it's at least your first attempt. And don't be afraid to get rejected, right? We get rejected every single day for companies who aren't forward thinking enough to move forward with Grapevine just yet. But we're going to circle back to them whenever we get a little bit more mature. Okay. Now let's talk about this isn't just a Gen Z problem, it's a system failure. The collapse of entry-level work doesn't just hurt Gen Z. It creates a leadership vacuum. No entry level equals no internal pipeline equals more expensive external hires equals cultural drift plus long-term instability. We're kind of already starting to see that. And if you're seeing this in your company, you can actually turn it around. But companies that don't build the next generation from the ground up, they're not scaling. They're just waiting to fall over. And so the system isn't broken because of Gen Z. It's broken for them.
I get on the train at 7:30 and I don't get home till like 6:15 earliest. And then like I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I can't even imagine the working parents out there, and like I give so much grace to them because it's incredibly hard in America to be emotionally and mentally stable when your days are structured like that.
So I want to bring back our panel now, Mike, Barbara, Heidi, and LZ. First of all, I love that she gave a shout out to working parents out there. Mike, a lot of people really supported her video here. What's your take?
I think it's awesome. I'm all for reimagining the work week, not necessarily from the context of how she's framing it, but I am in favor of reimagining the 40-hour work week. Can we reduce it to 4 days out of the week, working possibly 12 hours, that we can have that 3-day weekend to relate to self-care?
Right, the 410s, 412s. Heidi, what say you?
Well, I think it's all about productivity. I think there's this idea that you get more work out of somebody when you work them 5 days a week than if you worked them 4 days a week. And so American business need to understand the clear message that productivity matters more than time.
And if we want talent to grow, lead, and stick around, we need to invest in the beginning, not just chase unicorns at the top. Because the real future of work, it's not AI versus humans. It's about how we bring them together and who gets the chance to be in that conversation. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching the Future of Work Weekly Report. Make sure to like, comment, and share, especially if you've ever been told to have 5 years of experience for an entry-level job. If you like that joke, like. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. A Brookings analysis of OpenAI data found that over 50% of tasks for marketing research analysts and legal assistants are automatable. Should we leave this in? I don't know. Is that funny?
The waves are calling, feel the